Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jose Cruz. I was the guy that made that really quick video yesterday that was telling you how to avoid Zoom bombing by very, very quickly showing you a very rushed version of how to go into Zoom settings and set waiting rooms. Less than 24 hours later, Zoom, because people had been really complaining on what Zoom had been doing and this problem about how they claimed end-to-end encryption, and there was potential for malware, and they were even worse than Facebook when it came to user data. And the FBI started investigating them, basically pulled up their socks yesterday and started making some really big changes. Number one, they no longer claim that they have end-to-end encryption. That was the problem. They never really did have end-to-end encryption, but they said that they did. So they changed that part of the user agreement. That doesn't mean that their encryption is perfectly safe. It is not dangerous, but it is not end-to-end encryption, so it can be intercepted by people who are really dedicated to it, and if users make all kinds of bad judgment. Generally, it's about as safe as most of the telephone calls that you've made. It's probably even way safer than old cell phone calls were back even around the 2000s. I wouldn't worry about that so much unless you're dealing drugs or you're a dictator who wants to hide his torture plans for his political opponents. The other thing was Zoom bombing, and how people were very worried because they heard that the KKK or just generally high school punks had been taking meeting URLs that had the meeting passwords and the meeting information already in the URL, just going in there and just shouting racist epithets and Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. They would go in there and show pictures of people drinking wine and stuff, just really cruel stuff. Some of it was pretty just punkish behavior, and some of it was just sociopathic behavior, pedophiles. You can get the general gist. So what did Zoom do? They basically made it so that any new installs of Zoom, any new downloads of Zoom already had waiting rooms enabled. So if you're going to host a Zoom seminar or a Zoom webinar or a Zoom meeting, and you just installed the stuff, then you can't, I don't think you can even turn it off. As the host, you have to attend to the people who are coming in through the waiting room. So that whole video that I made yesterday was basically moot at this point. There were a few other things, and if it comes to mind, I'm going to mention them now. But basically, this is what I was thinking. It's going to get better. The whole issue about serving data to Facebook. Well, it's interesting that I find that the most people who complain about Zoom's data management practices are saying that it's worse than Facebook were people who were complaining on Facebook. So obviously it wasn't that important to them. If you have an Android phone, you'd be surprised how Google actually handles your data and uses location tracking to watch everything that you do. And if you team up an Android phone, or a little bit an iOS phone too, but not so much the location tracking, you use those phones with cashless payment systems. Those things are watching you all the time too. So all of this about security and stuff, it's a worthwhile concern, but if you look into it deeply, and I haven't changed my mind on that, Zoom could be worse. It can get better, and that's why I think the company is trying to do better. They should be watched. They should be given the benefit of the doubt, but anything to do should be confirmed. But I don't think they're going to get away with very much anymore, because now with the FBI breathing down their necks, I think they'll tighten up. However, now that that's all settled and today is a different day, I have a bit more time to go over the Zoom settings with you here on my browser again. And I thought this time I'd take a slow walk through all of my Zoom settings and told you what I modified, what I didn't modify. Please bear with me. I didn't write a script for all of this. I just looked over all of this. I modified what I think was important, and I kind of rehearsed in my mind my rationale for it. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment wherever I post this on social media, or to message me directly at Goldfish365. Okay, so let's go quickly. I'm assuming you watched the other video, which is where I showed you that to really get it deep into the Zoom settings, you have to go to their website, not just to the app, but to their website. And that to get into the settings page, that you sign in. And once you sign in with the password or with the Google ID that you used, then you're immediately taken to this page. If you haven't yet, you might have been taken immediately to the profile setting here, which I will go to now. And this is where you have your personal information and you can change your name. And if you're like me, if you're a teacher in Japan, encourage your kids to sign in with their real name. But with the real name in Roman letters, with the the family name order properly done, so it's Suzuki, Taro, whatever, but in Roman letters to make it easier for you. They might be prone to actually doing it in Japanese. Okay, so you go from profile to settings, and that will highlight in blue. Okay, so now that you're in settings, we can go more slowly over all the stuff that I was skipping over really quickly before, because I really wanted to get on into breakout rooms and into waiting rooms. So let's go slowly from the very beginning. This whole thing about the telephone, I wouldn't worry so much, probably because this is for some like corporate types who actually think that someone's going to dial in to a conference call. For most instructors, your kids will probably not be dialing in to this conference call. So I wouldn't worry about this too much. Just leave that as default unless you want to look through it yourself. Recording, I might do a whole separate video about that, but I would leave that alone too. It didn't seem like when I looked at it myself that there was a lot of important stuff that we needed to talk about right away, right there. But this part, under meeting, that's where I said there were so many things here that you will want to consider. And this is what I'm going to do in this video. So here we are. You can tell what I've modified and what I haven't modified, because if it's modified from default, whether on or off is the default, if you change that, it'll tell you that, yes, you changed that. And it'll say right here, has been modified. And if you want to reset it, there's immediately a reset button. So you can see that the default for host video is actually off, and I turned it on. And that was because I wanted to go straight into the meeting with my video on, because I get confused. Because I'm usually the host, I may as well start by making sure that my video is available for everyone else. But for participants' video, I would leave that off, because a lot of these kids, they just was spaced out. I'm going to have a class at 9 o'clock in the morning. Some of them will just, they'll still be eating, or they realize they've got coffee on their lip or whatever. So I would turn that off, and then they'll get used to the idea that once they come in, they have to turn on their video. So I would meet. This is I don't want to have to say that all the time. I'm saying me. I turned on host video. Okay, and as we go through, the next thing that I modified. You can look at all this slowly yourself, but the next thing I modified, and I'm just going to go down slowly, stuff like mute participants upon entry. You might have a particular reason, or you have experienced meetings where you think that if these, okay, here's a good one. Here's an example that I hadn't thought of. Let's say you're doing Zoom with a whole bunch of little kids, and you've got two little brothers who live in the same house, and they're really boisterous, super energetic, and they really love what you teach. So when they get on, they're already yelling, and you get a little tired of that by the third or the fourth week. So you mute your participants upon entry, and these participants know that they have to turn on their audio as well as their camera. You can just imagine where stuff like this can be handy. Me personally, I don't think I'll encounter a need for that, so I leave it. I turned this on. Upcoming meeting reminder, so that I'm assuming that when there's a meeting about to come up, and it's done it before. That wasn't Zoom. That was my calendar software. Though Zoom will remind you, hey, it's 10 minutes to 7, better go start the meeting. And I think it'll be good. So I'll have reminders from both my calendar software and from Zoom. Okay, so let's just keep going here. Now these are conditions within the meeting itself when the meeting is already happening, so it's in meeting. Third-party endpoints encryption, I'm not really sure what that is. I think that's, again, part of the whole thing about conference calls and making sure that the phone at the other end that's dialing into this is using encryption of some kind. Not really sure. Can't imagine. And besides, I think because Zoom is being used all around the world right now and it's really burdening their servers, they've temporarily disabled the ability to use telephones to come into online meetings. Okay, now chat is something that you have to be careful about. Chat. I think chat is useful because I can even imagine some places where I want to be able to use it, but I want to be able to use it so that everybody can see what everybody else is chatting. What I don't want is for kids to, in a class of 30 students, find their friends, look only at their friend's video, and then just start chatting with each other and just ignore completely the instructions I'm trying to give, even for those 5 minutes or 6 minutes. I don't want that. If they want to chat, I can't completely stop it because if they're on their computer, they can still chat with each other over line. Yeah, I know that. So I can't completely stop it, but I'm not going to make it easy for them, and I can still see when they're chatting on their phones when they really shouldn't be. But nah, hey, just, you can't stop all of this stuff. Just like I have a very strict no phone rule in my classroom, but some kids still try to get past it. So, what are you going to do? That's the teenage brain. Now, you can prevent participants from saving the chat. Don't see any need to do that yet because most of it is going to be public chat. If it turns out that I have a problem, then I try to remember, I can do that, and that's why it's good to read this so that then at least you're told you have that option and you can come back if you can remember that that was the case. But its default is that it's on. It is also default that meeting participants can send private one-to-one messages to each participant. Now, I wanted to show this particularly. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want students sending messages to each other during my chat. They're going to have a hard enough time concentrating on what it is I'm saying because I'm going to be trying to use their second language, English, and I would like to make it as easy for them to focus as possible. So least number of possible distractions. So I'm going to turn this off. All chat will be public. Everybody can see what everybody's writing. And that makes it incumbent upon me to tell the students, hey, remember, you can't make it so that only Taro can see Keiko's chat messages. If you're going to be writing love notes to each other, you really should be doing that in private. So I'm going to turn off private chat. There, modified it. Okay, auto-saving chats, play sound when participants join or leave. That was modified. And I thought it would be useful for me to know when people, not when they join, because when they join, I'm going to be bringing them in from the waiting room. But when they leave, I want to know if they try to skip out. And if I've got 35 kids in the grid, I might not notice that somebody left. I also have a different idea about how to take attendance, that I would take attendance with a grid screenshot at the beginning or 5 minutes into the class, and then maybe just 5 minutes before I say, okay, let's start to wrap it up. Here's your assignments and stuff like that. Just before I get into that, I'm going to try to remember to hit a screenshot again. So the people who were in and the people who were out should match. Okay, but still, I'm going to get a sound if they leave. And maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was bad connectivity. Maybe plug got pulled on the notebook computer. And it should be only me that needs to hear it, so it's just heard by host only. When each participant joins by telephone, so again, I'm not expecting anyone to join by phone, so I'm not going to worry about that. Feedback to Zoom, nah. Display end of meeting experience feedback survey, nah. See, all of these things that once you have a chance and you know where this is something that you should take your time, read through it quickly. I just want to show you what I've modified. Okay, allow host to put attendee on hold. This is something I modified, and I think it's good if somebody's acting up or they're yelling because they're frustrated or they got angry at somebody else. I can put them on hold and, put them back into the room once they've calmed down or have had a chance to talk with them privately. Always show control toolbar. If you've used Zoom before, you'll notice that if you don't touch your cursor for a little bit, all of the controls like share screen, mute audio, that disappears. And me personally, I find it a little bit easier for me to focus on what might be happening if I can see all of my controls, especially because I've got the waiting room enabled. In the first 10 minutes, if people are coming late into the waiting room, I want to be able to bring them in as quickly as I can. So having the meeting room, having the control toolbar with participants waiting and things like that, always visible, I think would be better. Here's another one that I changed. Show Zoom windows during screen share. I want to make sure I'm going to be sharing my screen a lot because I have a very big monitor. It's a 27-inch monitor, and I'll be sharing a word processing document from my desktop where I can type and use that as a virtual chalkboard. Instead of writing behind me on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, I'll be typing on here, and I'll say, well, let's take a look at this grammar. Can you give me your own sentence from that grammar from a word processor? But at the same time, if you do that, you can't really see very easily, or you see only in very small avatars everyone's faces, and I want to be able to see the entire Zoom window at the same time. I've got the screen real estate for it, so why not? Show Zoom windows during screen share. So, I just said that one. Okay, and then screen sharing. Now, here's what you got to be careful. When I first started Zoom, the default was for everyone to be able to screen share whenever they wanted. And part of Zoom bombing is sometimes, even though you know who all of the people who are participating, you'll get, I don't know, some kid who just had a bad day, and it's his turn to share, and he's freaking out because he didn't do his homework, and he starts to share, and he just starts pounding with his fist on the keyboard, or starts doing something. I can imagine that happen. And because it's something I can preempt, I'm going to make it so that at least, I'm going to test it out tonight, but at least I figure that screen sharing with the host only will allow me still to say, okay, I want you to screen share, so I'm going to give you screen sharing privileges. I'm assuming it's going to let me do that, and I won't be able to test it out until tonight. If I find out otherwise, I'll make another video in the next set of instructions I do about Zoom. But please test it out for yourself. But at least, even if I can't allow other students to screen share, I don't think I'll need to ask students to screen share that often. I don't think there's going to be so much of a need for me to ask them to, okay, well, show me your room by showing it on your camera, or show me what you've done. Maybe I'll be able to check that still by whatever they've done by email, or screenshots that they would upload by the minute to Facebook and things like that. So I think I'm going to limit it to host only. So screen sharing is enabled, but only for me as the host. Okay, let's keep going here. Here's another modification. Remote control. There was a point where people could annotate things and take control of someone's screen when they were screen sharing. And I saw one time somebody was sharing their screen, and these were actually university instructors. Another university instructor, just out of frivolity, just took over his screen. And I thought, holy cow, that's dangerous. And I just said, no more remote control. I'm going to turn it off. So I turned it off. Nonverbal feedback, though, is very good. I turn that on so that then there's a little button on the bottom right hand where you can, if somebody says something, you can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's a very more muted way to give an approval. So you could say, okay, everybody, who wants to finish up early today? And everyone's going to hit the thumbs up, and say that, hey, everybody, who here prefers vanilla cake over chocolate cake? And you say, okay, first vanilla cake. And then everyone, okay, chocolate cake. And most everyone, I definitely would vote for chocolate cake. So you can use that with the nonverbal feedback button, bottom right hand of the main Zoom window when you're the host. Or when you're the participant. Everybody has the button. Okay, now here's where we get to more important stuff. I showed this before in the other meeting. Breakout rooms, very important if you want kids to actually go off on their own and do work. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to use that. I'm wondering how much for kids who have literally only their phones. They don't have a notebook computer, a desktop computer. They don't even have Wi-Fi in their room. How much I have to modify my expectations for these kids that really only have their phone as an internet device. But in any case, breakout rooms are good, and I turn that on. And virtual background, I turned that off, and I said yesterday, that it's because it's a matter of taste. Maybe you enjoy it, maybe you love it, great. I don't think it's going to harm anything. One thing I can imagine, though, is that for everybody? Yeah, it's for users. And if a kid wants to turn on a background that's, I want to say in poor taste. Well, okay, no, I say in poor taste. I don't want to have to start policing everybody's backgrounds. So, I don't want to say, oh, no, that passes barely, but no, that's across the line. You're going to be spending too much time just even worrying about little things like that. That's one less thing I need to worry about. So, no virtual backgrounds. Let's see. And where was there? It is. This was, I thought, when Zoom this morning, or when I woke up this morning and it was reported that Zoom had actually made the waiting room default, I thought this was going to disappear from my settings, but I guess it's because I had already installed Zoom before they had changed that. So maybe that's why it remains. In any case, here's the important thing. You want to make sure it is enabled. If the default that you have has that button gray, turn it blue. If the default that you have is blue, leave it alone. You want it running as the host. You want to be able to make sure that somebody goes into the waiting room before you personally allow them to come in. You can check their name. You can check to make sure it's the real person. And then when they go in, you can be a little bit more wary. Oh yeah, no, that is Taro, and that's him on the camera and everything else. That you do that using the waiting room. Okay. What else did I modify? Remember, look at all of these yourself. Integration, authentication. Don't know what that is. You check all of this yourself. And if there's something that you'd like to ask me about, and even if I don't really know the answer right away, I think I would like to know the answer eventually. So I'll research whatever answer until we're both fairly satisfied that we've got a good grasp of the situation. I'm sorry if there were cuts and all kinds of difficult things to understand in this video. Doing my best. You're doing your best. Let's do our best together. Thank you very much. I'll be doing more of these videos as we go along. Any questions, please email me, Jose@Goldfish365, or if you're watching this on social media, please comment down below. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.